Welcome. Welcome, dear colleagues, friends, and guests, to the 60th anniversary celebration of the International Astronautical Federation. I share this celebration with some of my predecessors, which will be started today on stage. Some of them are actually sitting in the audience, like Roy Gibson, and some will follow us from home. I dedicate this celebration to George van Reet, who passed away last year. He certainly marked the history of these 60 years of our Federation. A special welcome goes to a special personality, namely Vladimir Kopal, who just arrived. Vladimir is the General Counsel and as such the guardian of our Constitution for the past 4 decades. He is the living history of the Federation. Let me express to you my deepest compassion for our colleagues in Japan. Your country has been hit so hard by an earthquake of unprecedented intensity. Our thoughts are with you and with the injured and the victims. We wish you and your brave compatriots all the courage and strength you need to build up your country after this devastating disaster. As you've just seen, it was on September 4, 1951, when representatives of 14 young astronautical societies came together at the occasion of the Second International Astronautical Congress to create the International Astronautical Federation. At that time, space was dominated by the 2 superpowers and clouded by the Cold War. IAF at that time took an important function in providing a platform across the Iron Curtain and a bridge to the then emerging space nations. Today, the situation is quite different. 205 members from 58 countries form the Federation, with an increasing number from countries like Africa, Asia, and Latin America. IAF includes all major space agencies worldwide, and most of the national space offices and authorities, in particular from developing countries. In addition, we have the leading industrial companies, research institutes, professional societies, and universities as members. This is our assignment: connecting space people. The most visible activity of the Federation is the International Astronautical Congress. It enjoys increasing attention from year to year. Our past Congress in Prague attracted 3,500 attendants with 1,600 technical papers presented in 160 sessions. This year's Congress will take place in Cape Town. It holds promise to become the largest Congress ever outside Europe, with 2,400 abstracts submitted for the selection which actually takes place here in Paris tomorrow. The most important part of the Federation, however, is its global network of space experts. Following our theme, a spacefaring world cooperating for the benefit of humanity, the Federation advances the knowledge about space and the development and application of space assets for the benefit of humanity. It's about 1,200 experts in 16 administrative committees, 23 technical committees, including the IPC that met here in this room just preceding this session, that cooperate worldwide to exchange knowledge and experience. At the age of 60, and I can assure you this is what I can experience myself, you can also have a look at your offspring. We have two: the International Academy of Astronautics and the International Institute of Space Law. Both recently have celebrated their 50th anniversary. Please have my sincere congratulations. Both were founded from the IAF. Both are now independent organizations cooperating with the IAF. IIA and IISL, represented here by their presidents, Tanya Masson-Swan and Matafen Nair, we are proud about you. The Federation also sees its task in connecting space generations. As you've just seen, it was 10 years ago at the 50th IAC in Amsterdam when astronaut Wubbo Ockels marched in with 500 students, reducing the average age of the convention instantly by at least 10 years. Since that time, we have succeeded to achieve a stable participation of about 30% of young people to our IACs and the technical committees. And an anniversary as the present one is not only an opportunity to look back, it is also an opportunity to look into the future. Where will the IAF go? First of all, IAF is on its way to develop into a truly global organization, including all countries worldwide interested in space, and particularly reinforcing its presence in the southern hemisphere of our globe. Secondly, IAF will enable and contribute to global space efforts like the ISS, like the exploration of our planetary system. Third, IAF expands its networks to experts of all relevant and up-to-date fields of space. Concerning our Congress, the IAC will continue to be the premier annual Space Congress, increasingly attractive for everyone acting in space. With this, I would like to thank all volunteers, and this is you. I would like to thank all IAF member organizations. Thank our strategic partners, such as the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs, represented by its director, Osman Maslan, and the chair of COPUOS, Dorin Brunariu, who's again with us today. I thank our partner organization, COSPAR, represented by its president, Giovanni Bignami, and I just noticed also by the past president, Roger Brunet. I thank our sponsors, in particular our gold sponsor, Lockheed Martin, represented here by Mary Snitch, the silver sponsor, MDA, represented by Mark Iskander. Finally, I would like to extend my thanks to our host of this event here today, UNESCO, which is represented by its Assistant Director General for Natural Science, Gretchen Kalonji, who I now ask to take the floor.
Dear Professor Feuerbacher, President of the International Astronautical Federation, IAF, dear Mr. Wilkins, Executive Director, IAF, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great delight for me to have the opportunity to participate in the 60th anniversary celebration with you here today. Indeed, it's well known that IAF is the forum par excellence for bringing together decision makers from space agencies, from the space industries, as well as senior scientists in fields ranging from astronomy and astronautics to Earth observation. We at UNESCO are honored to receive you here today at our headquarters. It's really a delight to see this packed audience. Of course, you know that UNESCO is a UN organization. Our main mission is to foster peace amongst all people through education, culture, communication, and science. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a brief history of our interactions with the IAF and with space activities in general. So UNESCO's involvement in space activities dates back to the 50s, when the organization assisted various scientific communities in forming professional organizations to promote international cooperation in the field of space studies. By 1963, UNESCO hosted a major first conference on space. That was the 14th Astronautical Congress, which was honored by the participation of Mr. Yuri Gagarin, a Russian cosmonaut. It was also the year that Ms. Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman to orbit the Earth. Also at this Congress in '63, a special committee on education and space was created in close cooperation with the Earth Science Program of UNESCO. During the 70s and 80s, the links expanded between the space agencies, the science and engineering communities, and UNESCO, and the need to bring together space experts worldwide in an international and interdisciplinary scientific endeavor for the benefit of humanity was clearly felt. From the dawn of space exploration, the observation of our home planet from satellites was seen as the ideal setting for observing the Earth as a holistic system consisting of atmosphere, oceans, and continents capable of supporting life. These scientific insights, as you well know, led to a greater understanding of natural and human variations in the Earth's climate, and science would also provide a sound basis for environmental decision-making. In the 90s, the space agencies and the scientific community realized there was a pressing need to make the general public more aware of the benefits of space programs, and major efforts were undertaken to organize conferences, exhibits for the general population. Once again, UNESCO was called upon, in particular, to assist regions in creating non-governmental committees to inform the public of important contributions made by space technology and space observations. UNESCO is particularly happy to be one of the founding members of the European Association for the International Space Year, EURISI. Today, EURISI and UNESCO collaborate actively in bringing scientists, teachers, journalists, and the private sector together to exchange views on the role space technology can or should play in the fight against environmental degradation, or the developing of educational programs, or study of the use of satellite information for the management of protected areas. Of course, the applications are enormous. In 2001, IAF celebrated its 50th anniversary here at UNESCO under the chairmanship of Mr. Marcio Barbosa, who was at that time the Deputy Director General of UNESCO and the President of IAF. And in that same year, IAF held its 52nd Congress at Toulouse, in which UNESCO joined with the space agencies in a new and exciting area of cooperation, namely culture. At the Congress, it was decided to launch a special initiative on the use of space technologies to support the activities of UNESCO's World Heritage Center. And over time, we're very happy that many space agencies have joined this UNESCO ESA open initiative which monitors by means of space technology the natural and cultural World Heritage sites protected under the World Heritage Convention. Through UNESCO's participation in the IAC Congresses, the geographical distribution of participants has widened considerably over the years, as was mentioned by Dr. Feuerbacher. Through consultations between IAF and UNESCO, a strong young participants program gradually was created, and more scientists from the developing world were able to attend high-level technical sessions and workshops. We've also enjoyed cooperating with the IAF Committee for Liaison with International Organizations and Developing Nations in the conduct of workshops for developing countries held each year in conjunction with the IAC. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us up to the present. We all know about the importance of conducting experiments from space to understand the various dimensions of our planet. And UNESCO's international and intergovernmental programs have both contributed to and benefited very, very greatly from the collaboration with the IFA. As a concluding remark, I would like to stress the importance of education in science and engineering. UNESCO, through its space education program in cooperation with the space agencies, has made a special effort to introduce space issues into the curriculum of secondary schools. I'm also, of course, therefore, particularly delighted that a large group of school children were invited to the celebration here today, and that a session was organized with astronauts on the theme of living and working in outer space. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I'd like to thank you again for being here at this IAF 60th anniversary celebration. I'm sure it will be an enjoyable, enriching, and beneficial experience for each and every one of you, and I look forward to meeting many of you. Thank you.
Philippe, we have our first client for today.
Federico, how are you? I'm so glad to see you.
Glad to see you, Phil.
Hey, did you have a good trip?
Very
Yeah. Look, you know, we had so many friends around. They're gonna come not there. They're gonna come there. You know,
okay.
it's time. So have a seat right away.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Federico, we're so glad to see you here. You know, so take a seat, and we're going to get you a drink. What do you want to drink?
Glass of beer, please.
Glass of beer. That's good. Oh, here you are. I'm so glad to see you. Hello, Ariane.
Hello.
Oh, King Sergei. Great. Come on, follow me. He's already there. You've got two guests already coming here.
Oh, good.
Yes, please, have a seat. Feel just like at home, okay? So, you know, Federico, I had the immense pleasure to have almost, actually more than 3 years of consecutive flight here. 2 years of flight for Sergei Krikaliev and Oleg Kotov, those two cosmonauts from our Russian space agency. And then Ariane Cornell, who's gonna be with you, and we're gonna serve you a drink. This is Federico Casal. He's our honorary secretary, one of the most valuable assets of the Federation since he has been there almost since day one. So we'll let you there, okay?
Thank you.
You're so quiet that actually we're going to invite you. It seems to be needed a bit of music, don't
Didn't
we?
you have a film maybe to show us?
Oh yes, we do have a film. Actually, we do have a bit of music. Can you put the music on, please?
I'm not doing that one.
Oh, where's Missoura? Oh,
We
can I
have,
ask? Oh, here you are. Come over, please. Come over. Welcome. Please welcome Ms. O'Reilly. And let the party begin. Ms. O'Reilly, I think we can thank her. I think we can thank Ms. O'Reilly. Ms. O'Reilly has started, she was 5 years old. She's Korean and she has already been with us. So thank you very, very much, Ms. O'Reilly. So, do you enjoy? You have your beer? Everything's fine? Let's go.
Well, that was incredible. I think my cosmonaut friends can agree that we've come quite a way from that first launch of Yuri Gagarin. Quite a few years since then, and the IAF has played such a role. And Fred, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the IAF and how it came about, especially in such a decade, the 1950s.
Yeah, and I can explain to you that at the end of 1949, some engineers from Great Britain, France, and Germany got together, and they realized they had to transform wartime rocket technology into a system for peaceful exploration of the space. And so they decided to draw up a memo and send this memorandum around to all known, at the time, known rocket societies, and explaining this, and they got many answers, and they decided it was worth it to found something like the International Astronautical Federation. And the French Association and the British Association got together and organized a first Congress and the actual opening of the IAF for October in 1950. And this is how it came about at the time.
Interesting, very interesting. I mean, you know, I'd say many from our generation, I'd say from my young generation, we maybe don't appreciate as much of all the activities that went on in the 1950s. But in fact, that really is when we started to work on realizing some of these technical dreams of ours that we've had, including, of course, Sputnik, but also that of the first plannings of Yuri Gagarin's flight. I'm sure, Sergei, you have thought about Yuri Gagarin quite a bit as a cosmonaut yourself. Do you think that in the future we're going to have anybody who, with the legacy that Yuri has had?
For me now, it's difficult to imagine that someone will have the same legacy as Yuri Gagarin had, because he was the first. And comparing it with aviation, everyone knows about Wright brothers, but probably people don't remember who was first jet airplane, or first get supersonics. Although it was a big achievement, but people still remember first someone who was first. So Gagarin was first. Maybe some event, something like going to Mars, that may be the same scale, but at this point it's difficult for me to imagine what else can happen.
Well, what do you think, Mars, in the next, maybe in my generation's time, perhaps? Do we think?
Why not? It's possible.
But again, Aaron, I have a question about that. What do you think about the young people now? Because in 50s, probably you know, so the mostly who was involved in the creation space program was the young people, and they're 20s and 30s. And I wonder, is any difference and similarities between then and modern young generation? What do you think?
I think that's a very good question. I think in terms of, I'd say the main similarity is something that young people in many sectors, but especially in space, have to contribute. That's our energy and our innovative thinking. And that combined with veterans and experience, it's a pretty impressive combination. But in terms of the difference, I think that our generation, especially going forward, we're dealing with it's not just young people from the Soviet Union and the United States that think about contributing to space. It's people from around the world, young people from around the world, and I think that's going to be an important part of the future. It's making sure that that's part of the education, is that they see that the global spacescape, as I like to call it, is in fact international, and that we should be working together in this. Maybe the IAF can help in that. Well, to that, how about a cheers?
That was fantastic. Cheers, friends. I really enjoy. The Space Bistro is really going well, thanks of you. Cheers. Now, you did a good job. Is it true that when you flew, you left with a country, came back with another country, or what happened that time?
Well, that's a long story, a long time ago. Although I would say I left Russia and returned back to Russia. Actually, we landed to Baikonur, that was part of Kazakhstan. Only difference was that at that time it was combination of, it was Soviet Union of different republics, and then this republic came to community of independent states. So for us doing space business, space flights, this was secondary.
Wow.
Because when I was in space, I knew that many people spend a lot of efforts sending us there, giving us assignment what to do and how to do, and we were worrying of what happened on the ground, but still most important for us was to do well what we did.
Fantastic. I think that was, I'd like to stay here the whole night, but we've got other guests here. Saga, we're going to come back to you.
You know, in our own space cafe, you shouldn't be drinking.
Oh, sorry. I mean,
Here,
I thought...
this is your job. Come here.
Okay.
We've got some really fascinating, I love these conversations on space.
I leave you with your friends here. I leave you with your friends.
I love this combination. We're so lucky because we have space lawyers to be with Lucy and Steve Smith, our veteran astronaut, American, but spent so many years in Europe. 8 years now. It's so cool that you can come to our place. It's so fun because we mix like that, so many backgrounds. And Carl Deutsch, you've done everything from head of the Canadian Space Agency to head of ISU, then the academic version, and then the IAF, more important. So it's perfect for our celebration today. So enjoy, please.
Oh, let's get back to the 60s. So what would we remember of the 60s and even of the 20th century? Probably the exploration race and obviously the moon landing. So Steve, I'm curious, how old were you during the 1969 moon landing, and what got through your head at that time?
I was 11 years old when Apollo 11 landed on the moon. But throughout the 1960s, of course, the Russian and American space programs were progressing, and all of those were shown on television. I was one of those children who loved exploration and camping and finding out new things. So for me, I was looking for something that was interesting, and all of these space flights were shown on the television. So I decided I wanted to be an astronaut when I was very young. So my parents asked me to draw some of my thoughts. So I draw many, many drawings, just like this yellow drawing, which shows my name across the top and a rocket across.
Very artistic.
Thank you very much. But you know, dreams don't always come true so easily. So we often go to children, as we did today, and tell them, you know, dreams come true only if you work really hard. But for me, the space program was a dream come true because it showed exploration and the opportunity to travel and to find out new things.
And how about you, Carl Deutsch? What do you think the 60s brought? What are the characteristics of the 60s?
As I've been walking around Paris for the last couple of days, and I've seen spring bursting out, I thought, what a wonderful metaphor for space in the 60s. We have things bursting out of the ground, we have energy of young people, we have regulators, the policemen and so on there. All of those things are really part of what the space age in the 60s was. From nothing, or virtually nothing, a winter, it suddenly grew into the spring of space, and we had humans in space, we had exploration, and we had applications develop. The energy, the youth, the excitement, and the regulations are all part of what was the 60s.
Be another 60s one day, do you think, in space?
Oh, I think there definitely will be when we go back to places like to the moon and to Mars. People often ask us, are those things going to ever happen? And for me, the answer is very easy to say yes. The only question is when. when we talk to children that are 10, 15, 20 years old, I look at them and I think, you know, someone in this room might actually be the first person to walk on Mars someday. So we try and inspire them that way.
How about you? What do you think?
Oh, there's no question. Space is becoming even more important today than it was back in the 60s in terms of solving so many of the big issues that we're facing as the limits of Earth become more apparent. And, you know, this idea of exploration and maybe humans into space will provide that relief valve, the relief valve for continuing life on Earth. So I have no doubt that we'll be there.
Will there be the context of space cooperation there was in that time?
Oh, I think definitely. I think, you know, people often ask us why we fly in space, and the reason we fly in space is to make people's lives better on Earth through the gathering of information and things like that. And there are many stories that show how amazing the space program is in terms of bringing different countries together. In fact, the IAF has brought, almost 60 countries together. I remember back in 1990, I was in a NASA astronaut meeting. We had a meeting every Monday morning. And the head of the office, his name was Hoot Gibson. He was a Navy fighter pilot. And he came in and he always made announcements to the astronaut office. And he said to the 80 or so astronauts in the room, we've decided we're going to take the United States Space Shuttle and dock to the Russian Mir station. And I'll tell you, all 80 astronauts in that room laughed so hard because many of them, in fact, had been taught that our Russian friends were actually our enemies at that time. So many of the astronauts in the office couldn't imagine peacefully docking an American spaceship to a Russian space station. Well, about 15 months later, a famous Russian cosmonaut, Sergei Krikalev, actually flew on the space shuttle on STS-60. And a year later, the space shuttle actually did dock to the Mir space station. And in those 2 years, I remember Captain Gibson coming back into the Monday morning meeting one more time. And he said, you know, I really meant it that we were going to dock to the Mir space station. And in fact, our governments have agreed to dock 7 times now. And the laughter was even bigger than the first time he had told us.
Okay, so let's chin to the 60s.
Okay. Cheers.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't be here the whole time, but somebody's got to prepare your meals, I suppose. Philippe, looks like we have people here that we haven't talked to yet.
I heard these people were wondering what this drawing was over there. So.
Oh, that's Steve's.
The very artistic drawing.
Oh, that's Steve's drawing.
You've been drinking too much wine that day.
Good. So did you hear? It was Steve down. So, guys, this, you know, your period of time you're going to talk about here. Maybe you can start and discuss that a little bit with it.
70s are great.
The 70s are great.
Bee Gees, disco.
Yeah. Oh wow. I was just 10 years old, just like he was. Okay.
That was very interesting. Thank you, Philippe. I wanted to ask you, Alvaro, about the Bee Gees and the disco. Was there anything else during the 70s that could have influenced or inspired you during your work at IAF? I'm thinking of something like the Apollo and Soyuz docking.
Well, indeed, for people of your generation, it's difficult to appreciate the kind of change that happened in the 70s. We came, as it has been said, from an era of first man in the moon, first astronaut, first satellite, not only for the Soviet Union and for the United States, but for many other countries, to an era, the decade of the 70s, in which we appreciate the value of cooperation. And we understood that the space is for everybody, and the best way to explore space is to go together. And that's why we were fortunate to see the Apollo Soyuz program, as we were fortunate to notice the birth of the European Space Agency, also in the 70s. So again, many European countries, they got along together. The cooperation between Europe and the United States with the Space Lab, and by making a new, we heard the word docking before, indeed it was a time in which we appreciate that docking was essential to make all this cooperation. And finally, last but not least, it was an era which also we learned something special, is that we were trying to reach the stars, and we have a star nearby called the Sun that we had very little idea, to say no idea at all how it worked. So it was in the 70s when we start to appreciate the effects of the sun in our own system, in our own atmosphere, and we start to study, to make the programs to learn the interaction between the sun and Earth, that today they are so essential for all these climatic change events and all this paraphernalia. So indeed, the 70s, they were an important decade. And personally, to finalize, I got married and I got children, so it was important.
Thank you. You, Bob, we had a wonderful movie about the first man in space, and I was wondering what it meant to you to be an astronaut or a cosmonaut in your childhood.
Well, you know, during the 60s and 70s, I was in grade school. Apollo 13, Jim Lovell and his crew of Apollo 13 were my heroes. The astronauts and the cosmonauts from the Salyut 6 space station and Skylab, I knew their histories back and forward. I could quote all their stats in the same way that another Canadian could quote hockey player stats. And the Apollo Soyuz test project, those guys are my heroes as well. Leonov, you know, he's a veteran. So these people had the effect of taking my vision as a grade school person and elevating it to new possibilities. You know, space exploration, it causes young people to think about what else we can possibly do, to think about what's at the end of that river, what's on the top of that mountain, what's on that next planetary body. And those people are my heroes. And, you know, I think we, today, have an obligation to do the same with the next generation. If we get benefit professionally, personally from the space program, we have an obligation to inspire the next generation. Those are my best days after flying in space. Those are my best days when some university student comes up to me and says, you know, you don't know me, but you spoke at our school 10 years ago, and because of what you said, I decided to finish high school, or I decided to go to medical school. Those are my best days.
Alvaro, I think you have a point of view concerning the access to space, and I was wondering if you can tell us whether do you think space belongs to everyone, or whether we belong to space?
Well, no, what I say is that if I may rephrase your question, is whether we will ever go to space and to stay. And I used to say that we have two problems. One is a minor problem, it's called gravity, very minor problem. So we don't know how to get up there, but okay, we will solve the technicalities of being over gravity. But we have a second problem, which is a major problem in my opinion, which is legal and political hurdles. And they are very important legal and political barriers today to really have access to space for everyone, for everybody, for the benefit of all mankind. But I'm sure that in the next few years we are going to solve all these problems.
Bob, we often talk about spin-off in terms of technical aspects. How would you use your experience in space to involve people in international cooperation?
Well, you know, I think that there's a lot of the public, including the politicians, who support our program that are probably unaware of all the benefits that we get from spaceflight today. So communications, broadcast communication, search and rescue, remote sensing, robotic systems. These are things that we can tell the public about, you know, inform them, put out pamphlets, put out web pages. I don't think that's enough. I think we have an obligation, or we should have a strategy to engage people as well. If you don't engage people, for example, I can't remember if I told you, but aboard the International Space Station, we had to work out for 2 hours every day to stop the heart from atrophying, to stop the bones from demineralizing, to stop the muscles from wasting away. And that works out pretty good. It prepares us for return. And we tell the public about that. But why don't we engage the people on the ground as well? One of the big social issues in Canada is that our population is losing fitness. They're getting overweight and obese, and it's going to be a healthcare crisis, hypertension, diabetes in the years to come. If we can somehow engage the people in a nationwide fitness program based upon what we have to do in space anyways, that's how we're going to, those would be the best spin-offs.
Very good, and I mean that sounds like a very, very good idea to involve people and to I mean there was plenty of things that people could do with the astronaut, and I think we need to try to develop a lot on communication to tell the common people everywhere what we are doing in space, what you are doing in space, and try to make sure they understand the interest of going in space. I think the Federation is doing good for that.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of drama, human drama involved in spaceflight as well. You know, during a 6-month mission in space, there are things that go wrong. And somehow, working with our team on the ground and our colleagues on orbit, we have to solve those problems. And those are interesting stories to tell. You know, things don't always go right, but what is really interesting is how we go about solving the problems with our people on the ground. Teamwork is a really good message to get out, and drama is a good message to get out.
Okay, good. So I think that was a good thing for the 70s to have you here to talk about it. And before we involve all the people to do fitness with us, maybe we can involve them to have a cheers to the 70s.
Cheers for the 70s.
I think there's not enough music here, really. Your conversation was very captivating. I could hear you from across there, but I think I'd like to. What about a bit music?
Yeah.
You know, we've got the virtuos, we've got the concertists here in our bistro. So why don't we call up our concertists? Oh, here you are, still. Okay. I'm so glad to see you. I suppose you've never played in front of a cafe like this.
Exception of my life.
Exception of your life. So why don't you sit down and, you know, we've got almost 170 photographs that we dig into the IAF archives, and I bet you guys you will recognize some of your friends there, but some you will never recognize them. So you're gonna get a copy. You can access this on our internet afterwards and start digging and see, I know this guy, you know. Let's enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you very much for coming. And, you know, this was really magnificent.
So lucky.
We're very lucky to have all these guests coming today.
I mean, this Space Cafe was the best idea we've ever had.
That's right. Yeah, I just.
Look at that. And I thought we were done with the show.
We have other friends coming
Wonderful.
in.
So good to see you too.
Good to see you. Koichi, nice to see you too.
Oh, well, we have to start all over again, I suppose.
Thomas, come over. Thomas, can we get beers for everyone? And hello, Madame, how are you? Please have a seat. And here, and then, please.
Better. I'll get another seat for you.
We'll get a seat for you. Don't worry. Yes.
Okay. Maybe facing like that a little bit, you'll have a better conversation. There's a seat. Oh, look at that. They left it all messy for you.
Here we go. Please, make yourself comfortable.
There you go.
Okay. Well, all our guests, many guests tonight. And why don't you...
Don't we have a... Don't we missing somebody? We have a special guest?
Oh, yes. Oh, I forgot completely. Yes. He
An
just
Italian
came.
gentleman.
An
Such
Italian, yes.
I
an
remember
Italian.
such an important person.
Usually Italians are late, but I'm late now. What's going on with me? Yes. You know what? I have a surprise for you. President of COSPAR is coming, and he's supposed to give us an exciting speech. So please, welcome Giovanni Vignani, who is coming tonight for an inspirational talk.
Let's see, do I get a beer too? No? No beer for me? Yes, please.
Thomas, a beer, please.
Get things going, get it a bit, yes. All right, I mean, we're all in space, so it's easy for us to have something magic, which is called suspension of disbelief. Sounds like a difficult. It's actually what you invoke when you're reading, for example, Gulliver's Travel or Meister and Margarita, those famous works where you see Travels to Laputia or a cat drinking vodka, and you believe in it. As you read, you believe. This is called suspension of disbelief. Now, when my beer comes, I invoke on all of you suspension of disbelief, because I'm going to ask you to imagine a little time travel. An easy one, nothing science fiction, nothing spectacular. Time is August 1930. You are in rural Ohio, in the United States, 1930, 1 year after the Great Depression. You are walking, clutching a bunch of flowers, because you're visiting a young woman who's just given birth to a baby boy, whom she called Neil. So you go over, hand over your flowers, and tell Mrs. Viola Armstrong, this baby boy you're clutching, Neil, is going to walk on the moon. Can you imagine the reaction in rural Ohio, 1930? They say, totally out of your rocker, they would say. 4 years later, this time March 1934, it's more difficult to get a bunch of flowers because you're walking in a kolkhoz near Smolensk in the Soviet Union. March 1934, a bunch of flowers, probably not very easy. Because you're visiting again a young woman who's just given birth to a baby boy. You're visiting Anna Gagarina, who has just produced Yuri Alexeyevich Gagarin. And you say, this little boy is going to be the first in space to travel around the moon, around the Earth. Can you imagine again? I mean, this Anna Gagarina was a kolkhoz worker, someone who actually did work in the fields, had already had 3 offspring, and then Yuri. Suspension of disbelief, but as we know, dramatically true. the proof is that here we are. We've been out in space and we've been to the moon. And riding here on the metro, I was struck by a thought which I think could certainly guide most of us. Between Gagarin and Armstrong, there are only 8 years. Can you imagine that nowadays? 8 years without having the faintest idea how to do everything, with technologies that really Stone Age as seen from today. And yet in 8 years, from the first trip around the Earth to the first trip on the moon. It's somewhat unbelievable. But I, as you know, I have been a space astronomer all my active life. And so riding here on the metro, I was struck by another thought, to me, far more dramatic. Are we approaching the end of electromagnetic astronomy? Profound thought, profound thought. And yet, you know, it's somewhat true when I have physically witnessed the whole of space astronomy, and space astronomy has given us the dimension of depth in space. We have reached the first moment when the universe became transparent to photons, to electromagnetic waves. But we have also completely covered, spanned the electromagnetic spectrum, from radio to gamma rays. So, is there anything left to discover for the next generations in terms of electromagnetic astronomy before we move on to gravitational waves, who are a very tough nut to crack, or to neutrinos, even worse? Well, thank God, actually, the discovery space that we have now available to us still exists, and it's wider and wider. And I'll prove it to you with an example. Again, suspension of disbelief. We're going to do a poll here, okay? Imagine you're out there this summer, for example, on a beautiful night, cloudless, very clear sky. You're out in a deep in the deep ocean, or on a beach, or on the summit of a mountain. The sky is full of stars. Difficult not to think when looking at stars. I am an astronomer, but I am sure everyone shares the excitement of looking at stars. Difficult not to think. And then, as they say in Latin, tertium non datur. You have only 2 possibilities. You look up and say, what scares me most? The fact that I'm alone in the universe, or that there is someone out there? There's no third possibility, okay? So I'm now asking you, what do you prefer? Who prefers that there is someone out there? Raise hands, please. Very good. Bolshevik. Who thinks we are alone in the universe? Very, very small. I can see a hand waving there, a lone hand waving. Yeah? I think my point is proven. We all believe that the next step in our discovery space is precisely this, is to come up with the most interdisciplinary of all questions. Is anyone out there? And we are actually doing that, and I propose that to my students every day, and to young people, to boys and girls who will walk on Mars, because we all know that the boy or girl who will walk on Mars has already been born, of course. And so there are 3 ways of discovering whether there is anyone out there. One is the one we've already started, discovering extrasolar planets. We have already discovered nearly 1,000 candidate extrasolar planets. Of these, many are at the right distance from the right stars. On a few of them, water can be liquid. And we owe our existence on this planet because water on this planet has been liquid for 4.5 billion years. No liquid water, no life as we know it. But we now know that there are planets of the right size, the right kind of planets where that are right distance. Is the beer coming? They forgot about my beer. Anyway, at the right distance from the right star, right? And that is what we're after. Okay, today we already have 5 candidate planets that have mass similar to the Earth and that are the right distance from their stars. I promise that before the 70th anniversary of the International Astronautical Federation, we'll come back here with a new Earth, with a new planet just like our Earth. So then the next challenge is go out there in space, and it can only be done in space, and imagine doing a telescope so powerful that you can detect chlorophyll lines in the atmosphere of this planet. Wouldn't that be nice? That will be a great discovery. This will leave for the 80th anniversary of IAF. Meanwhile, we continue the second way of finding an answer, whether there's anyone out there. And this is the search for extraterrestrial life through what I call contact astronomy. I have invented the concept of contact astronomy, which means going out there on Mars and scraping a planet, pick up a handful of sand, put it into your robot, eat it, digest, and does it taste organic? This is the question. We'll soon have an answer to that. That will be very, very soon. You're not quite there yet, but we will be. Well, the next one is the beautiful thing that's already started, actually finding molecules, huge organic molecules, huge things on asteroids and in the tails, in the coma of comets. I'm sure many of you already know, but let me remind all of us that we have already found one of the 20 amino acids of which we are all made of in the tail of one comet, glycine. We have already found it. It's something that makes you think. And finally, I believe there's a second type of contact astronomy which is more for the dreamers, even more for the dreamers than normal astronomy is, and that is the search for someone out there who's clever enough to send us some signal, some sort. SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Okay, this is not in space, but can I talk about it anyway? Astronomers do sort of astronomy from space, from the ground, it doesn't matter. It's the third and very important way. We've been trying for half a century to point a radio telescope at the stars and listen and maybe get the sequence of prime numbers into your telescope. That would mean someone who knows a little bit of mathematics in there. We in Italy are very much worried by the fact that the Earth is surrounded by a sphere of expanding electromagnetic radiation, which we're very proud to say that it started more or less exactly a century ago by a guy called Guglielmo Marconi, who was the first one to send radio signals. It's expanding at the speed of light, therefore has a radius of 100 light years, and it includes hundreds of stars in our immediate galactic neighborhood. But now this bubble, this sphere, this bubble, we actually call it Marconi-Berlusconi, in the sense that it also includes a tremendous density of electromagnetic waves that are produced by TV, not just by Berlusconi, of course, but I mean, among others. I mean, we in Italy have, so Marconi had the Nobel Prize in Physics, as we all know. Berlusconi not quite yet, but we're working on it. We are sure. Okay, so seriously now, we have a new dimension to SETI coming up because there's a whole new dimension of radio astronomy from the ground. Again, in the next 50 years, I am quite convinced that we shall have received that sequence of prime numbers. Thank you very much. Ah, my dear.
Grazie. Thank you very much. You know, you can go with a beer. You can go with your beer.
Yes.
I think sometimes some of our clients leave with their glasses, but it's only when we put the space shuttle and space station logo on the glass that they do that. So this we were a little careful. Kat. Hi.
Hello, Daria.
You got some pretty fun people around you.
I have some awesome people that I just have the opportunity
And you
to
came
have
all
a
the way
drink.
from Houston.
Yep.
Just for us.
Of course.
Because you heard it's the best cafe in the world.
Well, yeah.
And it's the only space cafe.
Yeah, the whole $1,000 glass of wine, you know, including the flight.
Tonight
but-
it's free. Tonight it's free.
Well, good.
So
Excellent.
all the way from Lockheed Martin, one of
Yes.
the most bubbling and extrovert young professional who's not that young but very young for most of us here.
Thank
We're
you,
so happy
Daria.
you're here to lead our little table.
Well, excellent. Well, I just have to say that it is wonderful to be sitting here with you, Johannes, and with Koichi as well. And just the immense amount of experience sitting here at this table. Koichi, you with all of your space time and all your flights. And Johannes, you with your immense experience as the president of the Austrian Space Office and also a past IAF president. One thing that I'm curious about, I've been to several IACs, and so far they've all run very smooth. But I heard a story about a particular IAC when you were president in Brighton. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about some of the challenges there and how you guys overcame them.
Thank you. But this question is, of course, a bit difficult for me because it was a lovely place, Brighton. It was 1988. And we all came there, of course. You know, it's the southern part of England on the beach and so on. But it started badly because at that time, the Minister of Space in the UK didn't like space so much. So he just didn't show up, you know, in the beginning. So we had an opening ceremony and we had no real representative of the UK government. So this started badly, and I think then God looked down on us and said that we will be punished. So what happened is a tornado arrived, a tornado. Not predicted by the Met Office in Brighton. It was terrible. You know, windows broken at the hotels. We had to evacuate some of the people there. And all the electricity was gone. Power lines broken. No roads from London to Brighton anymore. All blocked. So I think it was the only IAF Congress where we didn't have a banquet. Of course, I'm coming from Austria. I said, oh, let's make it romantic. Let's have candlelight dinner. But, you know, all the official people said, no, fire. It could be a risk for fire, you know. So no banquet. IAF Congress without banquet. And no awards, nothing. So that was very sad. The only fortunate thing is that everybody went home safely. There was nobody hurt by this. It was just exciting, but it was my start as a president, and it was a bit shocking.
That is quite a start. Well, Koichi, I'm actually curious. You have so much experience. Have you had any challenges that you had to overcome on orbit? Hopefully not a tornado on orbit, but what experiences have you had?
Yeah, we have a lot of challenges in space, and in space there are a lot of things that breaks actually. But it's good that we have crew members on board because we can fix and we can keep going and utilize the space station. There are so many things that broke, for example, like a running exercise machine, a resistive exercise device, and also the water purification system. In space, believe it or not, we can collect the water, the urine in the toilet, and you can reprocess it all the way to the potable. So in space, yesterday's coffee becomes tomorrow's coffee. And if you look at it, this is
sounds delicious.
It's a huge achievement. On the ground, this same cycle happens, but it takes years for this water to circulate. But in space, we do this in 2 days. That's an achievement. But whenever something breaks, we have to spend hours to fix it. And so one of the things that I did was urine processing system repair. But we have really strong support from the ground, from all over the world, Houston, Munich, Tsukuba in Japan, Moscow, and Montreal in Canada. So with a big, strong teamwork, we always survived.
That's excellent. I know teamwork, I notice in the space industry, especially down in Houston, very important, and we have some very successful flights. I'm just curious, Johannes, I've also heard that you were president during the first Congress that was held in India. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, I can tell you positive stories now. Yeah.
Excellent, good to hear.
Yeah. But I'm still sorry for the British Interplanetary Society, because they worked very hard for this Congress, and really I was regretting very much. But it became a nightmare. But afterwards, it was in Bangalore, Congress, first in India, was like a fairy tale. It was so beautifully organized that you can't imagine. It was the best exhibition I ever saw from ESA, best exhibition of CNES. Well, almost competing CNES and ESA also. The French are part of ESA, you know. But it was fantastic, and I got marvelous hotels, marvelous reception, marvelous dinners. I couldn't even enjoy my suite at the hotel because I had so many dinners and speeches. But you know what's most important is it was the end of, at that time, it was the end of the Iron Curtain also coming up. And there was some marvelous men in India responsible for ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, U.R. Rao. And he worked so hard for developing countries, so we created a committee, an IAF committee for liaison with international organizations, but especially with developing countries, to start really to make space available for improving life on Earth for these developing countries. And this committee was meeting there, and we worked so hard that we prepared the first UN IAF workshop, also co-sponsored by ESA at the time, and always been co-sponsored by the hosts. The first was then in Montreal in 1991, after this time. But we prepared the way for the developing countries to take profit from space, of space technology.
Excellent. And Koichi, and I guess he mentioned about how space can benefit the world. I heard a story that you actually grew bone density while in space, when most people lose density.
Yeah, you're right. We have done a lot of experiments, and in space, if you stay there for a long time, radiation exposure and also this bone loss is a big problem. But I was a guinea pig to take medication to counteract of this bone density. On board the space station, we have really good exercise device. As I mentioned, a resistive exercise device, treadmill, running machine, bicycle machines, and we have a 2.5 hours scheduled every day for exercise. And these exercise devices really help to reduce the bone loss. And in addition to that, I took this medication called the bisphosphonate alendronate. And actually, it's just my personal data, so it's not very significant that we have to have more N number to see this real effect of the human body. But my spine density increased by about 10%, and my pelvis bone density increased by 5%. So this medication that is used for osteoporosis on the ground actually really worked on board the space station as well. So with this medication and the great exercise device, I think we are really close to overcome this bone loss in space.
That's wonderful. And so do you think you will take the medication again on your next flight, where you will be the first Japanese commander of the International Space Station?
Well, yeah, definitely. I'll be happy to do that. Then I would like to contribute as many experiments as I can.
Well, I say cheers to that.
Thank you. Thank you.
C'était formidable.
Ah, dis donc, qu'est-ce
On se marre, on s'amuse comme des petits fous ici, finalement.
Heureusement.
Attends,
Attends, il y a d'autres choses.
Let's be careful what we're saying.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you. Oh.
You know that we have only one Argentina here? and this
Argentina,
is
is that a member
yes.
state of the European Space Agency?
Yes, I don't know. Hola, ¿qué tal?
Oh, excuse me, I've left there a few years ago.
Hola, Julio, ¿qué tal?
Hola, Felipe. ¿Cómo
¿Todos
estás?
bien?
Todo bien.
Hablaremos en
Todo
español
bien.
ahora.
Vamos, me había olvidado,
Oops,
hacíamos
no.
toda la charla en español con Jim y con...
I think where we would
¿Sí?
be lost is if it's in Chinese.
Yes, let me introduce the people who, you know Jim, do you?
Jim?
Jim, yeah, Jim.
Ah, Jim le Français.
Jim le Français.
Yeah, I think he's been around in Paris for many years, haven't he? Or
Yes.
he wish he had.
Yes, he was. and here's my friend Michel. You know Michel, of course.
Of course I know Michel.
Okay. We're so glad that you're here, Michel. Franco-Italien. Look, these are your guys. You can chat with them. They're really nice.
Yeah, I think we should get out of the way.
Yeah, let's get out.
It's not about us.
So, and we have reached the 90s. I think about the 90s and I think about very loud music annoying my parents in high school. But then I'm here with you and you, Michel, you were doing your first mission in the early 90s.
92 exactly, yes.
Yes, and you, Jim, you were here already, living in the city already?
I was indeed.
As a representative for NASA. Is
That's
that correct?
correct.
And then when I think about the 90s, of course, I think that this is when the first module of the International Space Station was put in place. International Space Station is I think is the flagship project demonstrating the success of international cooperation. But then what I want to ask you is, what do you think are maybe other projects or ideas that could benefit for this kind of international cooperation that might not take place, what could not take place with only one country or one agency? Let me ask you, Jim, first.
Well, I think there are many projects. Actually, Professor Binyami gave us a very good list. Thank you, Nani. And almost all of those grand endeavors require, today, I think the reality is they require international collaboration. But I'd like to come back to something you started with, because really the era of the 90s was a very interesting era for the IAF and also for some of the big programs, certainly for the space station, because in many ways it was a period of beginnings. It was the period when the partnership began to construct the station. It's the period when the partnership expanded. Our friends from Russia joined that partnership. And it was an interesting period for the IAF too, because it was an era when the IAF began in its first meeting in Dresden, and its last meeting in Amsterdam. That Amsterdam meeting, Philippe and his colleague Wubo Eccles started a new initiative in the IAF that has grown and grown ever since. Bernd mentioned it earlier, and that was bringing young people to the Congress. And many of us who were at that Amsterdam meeting, our first reaction is this going to work? And looking back on it, we wonder why we hadn't started it decades earlier.
And since then, we have been invading your organization. I remember my first Congress was in Japan, in Fukuoka. Of course, you were there.
I was.
This is when it was implemented, the Young Professionals Program.
Yes, indeed.
So I have to thank you for that.
Well, it was an interesting program because the ideas many of the ideas that we've implemented in the IAF for our young people came from the young people. And for me, that's actually one of the most satisfying opportunities I've had as an IAF volunteer, is to engage the young people and to listen to them and be challenged by them. And certainly they were anxious to have a young professionals program, so we created it.
I appreciate that, but you still have not answered my question.
Oh. Well, the ISS has it really did, I think, pave the way for many challenges and opportunities in the future. And Michelle can talk about the technical achievements of the IAF and the technical opportunities. I think from the cooperation standpoint, what it really demonstrated is that a group of major countries, in some cases countries that were not all that friendly in the past, have been able to work successfully together, very successfully together. And if I think of the 90s, there were periods when we really had to work at learning how to work together. It wasn't easy in those days, but that experience will apply to the great adventures of the future of going beyond low Earth orbit, and I'm sure Michelle has some thoughts on that.
Well, I came in '95 to NASA because before that I flew on the space station Mir, and NASA wanted to have some experts of Russian knowledge or Mir space station, so I was there. And during the class of training, the class of escargot, I was with the NASA astronaut. A lot of instructors told us, don't believe you will fly ever on the space station. This will not work. There will never be a program between the Russian and Americans, so forget about it. You fly on a space shuttle, you will fly on a Soyuz eventually, but not on a space station. So we were doubtful. So when finally we saw the first module of the space station arriving, I was saying, well, some people was wrong, I don't know what. But finally, after 10 years, we succeeded. And ISS is a true cooperation. For instance, what we do in Europe, at the European Space Agency, we do the ATV module launched by Ariane, but ATV is purely a cooperation module because the docking part of the ATV is from Russia. So we have to cooperate with Russia to dock ATV on the space station. Also, the system on ATV are coming from NASA. So ATV has 3 partners inside the ATV. So it's really a cooperation thing. And also when you look at the way we work on ISS, you need to cooperate, but to enter to a level of cooperation, you need to demonstrate what you can do. So we did the ATV to tell to the 5 partners, look, we are good. We can make an ATV, we can dock, we can make a laser docking, arriving rendezvous, which is unique and very precise. So because we are that, we recognize. And from that now, we can continue to build the step for the future cooperation to go on the moon.
But then I have just heard that the space station has been extended its lifetime to 2020.
Well, in fact, it was extended by all the partners except Europeans. So finally, last week we learned, and we had the agreement from all the partners inside the ESA to prolong the space station from 2015 to 2020.
2020, but I'm a bit always very impatient, always trying to look at what's next. And at 2020, I will be in my 40s, and we work in the same place. I would like you to tell me what am I going to be working with after the space station is
So you will be
retired.
on your 40 in 10 years. I will be 20 because when you dream of space, you are always young. There is a big difference.
That's the point.
Well, again, ISS was for me the most, even if it is expensive, the most economical way to demonstrate a feasible cooperation in space with all the partners. This is the way to go. There was no other thing. It was maybe not the best project in terms of price and volume and size and everything. I think in the future, my point of view, and it's not ESA, it's my point of view, is we should have, after 2020, and we should start to work now already, another space station to keep something going on low Earth orbit in order to prepare the achievement to go to the moon by a moon orbit or by a transfer from the Earth orbit to the moon. So, but a much smaller space station, maybe 3 times or 4 times smaller, also international.
Do you think the mission to the moon would have to be international?
Yes, I mean definitely all missions in the future will be international. We don't fly with a flag of a country. We fly with a flag of Earth.
And Julio, in the IAF, we have many countries, some of whom are very capable in flying to space, flying humans to space. And the future of space flight, human space exploration, is certainly global human space exploration. We provide an opportunity for those countries interested in participating in such activities to speak to one another in an informal way.
To have a place to have a common dialogue.
That's right. And I should also say that Michelle and I, if you're anxious what will happen in 10 years, Michelle and I are even more anxious because we want to be around to see some of these things happen.
We'll see it from there or from over, maybe.
Exactly.
And then I had another thing I wanted to ask you. Just 2 years ago, there were new astronauts selected, and I'm sure, well, not my generation anymore, the generation just after, the ones that still will, maybe in 10 years, participate in another selection, maybe earlier. What can you tell me of the selection process? What were the profiles you were looking for? But more than the ones that were selected, what do you think astronauts in the future will be like?
The profile of mission has been changed since the last 30 years, since Gagarin. I mean, Gagarin did a flight of 1 hour and a half, 90 minutes. Now people fly regularly and only 6 months. So all the flights are 6 months. And now we're going to have astronauts flying in the future internationally. So they have to speak many languages. They have to be able to train on all the different training centers. And they have to be ready to make a flight which is 6 months or more to go to the moon or to go to Mars. So the psychological behavior of the astronaut is a very delicate point, and on the last selection, we pay a very important attention on the psychological process, which is psychological behavior individually but in a team. And sometimes it's difficult because if you have a brilliant person, he is too far away from the team. And you cannot achieve a mission like this. So you need to have a group of very good people flying together and being together. So being very good everywhere, but not separated from the rest of the group. It's a difficult profile in terms of psychological.
I see your point. I think at this point, just when I finished university a couple of years ago, group work was everything. It was not anymore being the first one in the class. It was working together towards a common goal. At least that's what we learned there. Talking about the next generation of astronauts, they are probably now attending the next IAF via the Young Professionals program.
We hope so.
Which you had a lot to do with. What can you tell me of how is the youth going to affect IAF in the future?
To me, that's one of the most exciting things about the IAF because, my first Congress was in 1985 in Oslo. Some of our good friends here were with me at that occasion. And in those days, we really had very few young people. As I mentioned earlier, Philippe and Wubel Uckles began the youth program, the student program, and it's grown over the years. And today, 1/3 of the people who come to our IACs are under 35, and that's very exciting. Those people learn to deal with each other. In fact, you as a young person interested in IT, we were talking before we came in, we have to find ways to motivate the younger generation to stay in our space profession. Those of us who began years ago, it's very special to us, but there are other challenging professions. And the International is part of that. I think that the young people who are working together in the IAF context in space, working internationally together, they have a very special bond. And I'll be very excited, I'm sure Michelle will, to see some of the projects that you and your colleagues manage 20 and 30 years from now. You'll have a whole different relationship on how you work together.
I cannot wait to get there. So cheers to that.
Cheers. I'm going to drink to that too. Beautiful. Thank you.
This is also international. Namaste, Osanai. Namaste. Ni hao, han hao ma. Good, excellent. So I hope you have a good time.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So you celebrated your anniversary. Now you celebrate it with us. We're very happy.
I think that was 50th and this 60th.
Yes. So we have 10 years to go. Okay. Nunzia, You have perfect guests here.
Yes. Professor Fauerbach, I've heard once that you were involved in the design and construction of one little robot called Philae. Tell us something about it.
Oh, you're talking about Rosetta.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, Rosetta is a spacecraft which is presently on its way to a comet. It was launched 2004, and it will arrive at a comet with the wonderful name Churyumov-Gerasimenko in the year 2014. And then a little machine will detach from the spacecraft and will actually land on the comet. I mean, I must say that if anybody would have come to me and said, I want to build a machine that flies to a comet and lands, first of all, I would have declared him crazy. Second, I would have made sure that he doesn't get money for that. But the point is, this is so exciting. We just heard Gianni Bignami talking about the possibility of life in space, and comets are something like a deep freeze, cosmic deep freeze, where the matter of an age of 4.5 billion years is preserved. So we have access with such a flight to a material which is 4.5 billion years old, and we can investigate it and we can look for the original life. This is very, very exciting. So I think I should rather spend the money for that.
Yeah, deep space scientific exploration, it's really amazing. But nowadays, space is becoming more and more important also for human life and for our planet Earth as a whole. So Dr. Nahir, I know India is really interested, really focused on space applications. How they improving the life of Indian people?
Well, Indian space program had a late start, you know, when other countries were landing their men on the moon, and also the robots. We were just setting up small pencil rockets. But, you know, at the time, we had a vision, the space, the global view of the planet Earth, how it can benefit the common man. This was a vision of our founding father, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. And yes, then we had to have the tools of sending off the spacecraft, which can look at the planet Earth or beyond, and then have the communication system, which can reach out to every nook and corner of the country and so on. So this has really been the driving force. And within a very short span of time, I would say about 30 years research and development in this area, we have become pioneers in space technology. We have today very powerful rockets and very capability to build a spacecraft for Earth observation, scientific observation, the communication, and so on. Now, the question comes, how it benefits the common man? This has been a real challenge, and perhaps we have demonstrated to the world it can do very well. Let's take the Earth observation. By having a synoptic view of the whole country, which is around 3,500 kilometers across, we can identify the natural resources, the water resources, the forests, and so on. And we can give proper advices how this resource can be developed in a sustainable manner for the community. So this leads to increased productivity in the agricultural field, better utilization of the water resources, and even the advices to the fishermen leads to better catch and so on. Similarly, in the communication, it's just not relaying the voice or the data, but we have gone much beyond that. How it can utilize for reaching out to the people, whether it is for providing elementary education to the elderly people who doesn't know how to read and write, whether it is for supporting the management education at the higher levels, or it can be used for providing teachers training and so on. Similarly, an expert doctor's presence can be made from a city to remote villages. I would like to cite an example. In the northeast region, where there are no roads, no connectivity, there's a small village called Siliguri. And the metro station in Bangalore, it is around 2,000 kilometers away. Here we have the heart specialist who is sitting there, and at the Siliguri village, a mother comes carrying a child, crying. She doesn't know what illness is and what corrective action has to be done. This doctor sitting 2,000 kilometers away, he feels the pulse of the baby and also looks at the parameters and gives advices in a local language. And after 20 minutes, the lady goes happy, carrying the child back. Now, can you imagine such a thing? So that's the kind of impact we could make using the space technology to the country.
Didn't India also fly a spacecraft to the moon?
Oh, well, incidentally, we did that also. Well, that's a very interesting thing, you know. But that's a spacecraft which is a true example of an international cooperation. We had instruments from Europe, America, and India. And then we had our own small launcher, PSLV, which put the spacecraft into the orbit and went to the moon. Alas, finally what we found, we confirmed there is water on the moon. And future astronauts, you know what they said?
Do you also have beer?
Oh, no. What they said is, we need to carry only scotch.
Okay.
Ice and water are there.
So, but in these hard times, in crisis time like we are experiencing now, it's very difficult to carry on with space programs, and cooperation, international cooperation is fundamental, I should say indispensable. So as a young person, I'm very curious to see Yuan Xianxiang, your point of view. How do you see international cooperation in the future? Do you wish it better? Do you wish it different from what it is right now?
I'm very happy attending the ceremony of the IAF the 60 ceremony, because China this year do many space systems, such as the communication systems, satellite, and we built a multi-logical satellite to extend the climate. And we also do the resource, the Earth resource satellite. This year we also built, just like the America GPS, also the Russia GLONASS, yes, we call independent system, just like called Beidou systems. And we also, this year, we built the manner flight program. We launched the 7 central spaceship, yeah, and 4 is known manner, and 3 space shuttle. The spaceship. I see this this program have large money and the resource, and the technical is very complex. So I say we support this space activity. We now research the launch vehicle, new launch vehicle, just like the Long March 4, his maiden flight in the 1914. But we also planned the Manor Lunar program, yes. So we researched the heavy launch because the resource is limited. So I hope, I think we must cooperation with the advanced country, just like the America and Russia, Europe, maybe Japan, India. So in the future, I hope we can cooperation to the space program. And we can share the data, we can share the experience, and the result, reserve the mankind the program, just like nature disaster, earthquake, the tsunami, just like. But also we can explain the space, such like, just as that person say, we will find the new plan that suits mankind to live. So in the future, I hope we can cooperation with each other, and that we will get much programs in future. Yes.
Professor Fauerbacher, do you think I will be able to make a tour of the moon as a space tourist?
I think
I really want to go to the moon.
I'm absolutely positive that you will be able to make it.
I hope.
I think that the commercial part of the space flight will develop in future. This will lead to much cheaper transportation possibilities, and in this way you will definitively be able to afford it. You should work very hard,
yes.
Put a lot of money aside to make sure you have it. Once the ticket is available, you know, you can just buy it and go off.
Okay, one last question. Are we going to find life in the universe? We all agree that we'll find it, but are we going to find it?
I think Giovanni, Nani has been pointing at this he made even a vote here, and I was so surprised that only 2 people in this room don't believe that we find life. No, I think we have a good chance to travel around in our planetary system with missions like Rosetta, where we go for a comet. Mars is a place where, when we dig below the surface, we have a good chance to find either existing or past life. There are planets like Europa, which have under an ice cover of several hundred kilometers, they have a big ocean. There could be life. I don't think there will be little green men walking or swimming around. But it's a very good chance. I mean, just Mars developed very similar to Earth, just much faster. So in the early days, Mars had the same chance as Earth to develop life. So I think going there, digging deep into the ice layers of Mars, there's a very good chance that we either past life or even existing life today can be found.
To Mars.
To Mars. Cheers.
That was fantastic. You know, Bernd, I remember we had nice little story for a birthday. We don't have a cake today, but we do have something, do we? Okay. That's good? Let's have a look. Let's have a look at it, okay? Okay.
You have a flag for me?
Yes. But you know, let's try to do it in confidence, because at the moment, really, nobody knows it.
I almost used that to wash the table.
Yeah. Come on, you shouldn't do that. But nobody knows it, so please explain.
I mean, since nobody has ever seen that, you know, this is the flag. It looks nice. It says IAF. It's a golden background, 60 years. I mean, looks fantastic, doesn't it?
It does.
But there's much, much more behind it. This flag will fly in space. Now, that's not really a surprise. Many items have been flown in space, even people, and brought back. And some of it is for sale right now. But this one here will fly up into space, and it actually is up there presently, right now.
Not that one, a replica, the same one, not that one, because I keep it.
Honestly, we produced quite a lot of those.
Oh.
And all of them are now up into space. I mean, look at this. Have a look.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
It looks very much like this one here. Yeah? This is a photograph of the International Space Station, and it's flying right now. But as I said, there are many items that flown in space. There's something very, very special about this one here, because this will fly with all existing human spaceflight launching systems. It came up into space with Soyuz. It's up there now on the International Space Station. It will return on the shuttle, one of the last opportunities, actually in April, it was STS-134,
That's
right?
Right.
Yeah. And then it will stay on the ground a little bit, and 2012, we count on our Chinese partners. We'll fly it up again with a long march, fly it on Tiangong, the Chinese space station, which does not yet exist.
In space?
Yeah, it's built on the ground, but it will go on.
Yeah.
And it will come back on a Shenzhou. So it will have been up twice in space and flown all existing human space transportation vehicles. And what do we do with it? We have a number of them. And this will be the birthday gift to the IAF members. So all members of IAF will receive such a flag, flown twice in space, on all space vehicles available, and they will get it framed, nicely signed, and they have a memory of the 60th anniversary of IAF.
And as this flag is actually flying in space at the moment we speak, we also managed to have the flag flying on the Earth. So there's a big buzz going on already. It has been to Israel, it has been to Austria, it has been to several corners of the world. And you can actually download this out of the website. Take a print, show this, and take a picture. And this will fly all over the place in Europe. And I think this truly shows an international collaboration, an international connection. And this is what we're all about. That's why this bistro is all about.
Oh, I'm so sorry it's finished.
It is.
Philippe, do you think we could still have a little bit of music? I know my thing in the oven for all of us.
Everybody's hungry, so we should be going by now. You know, we're 5 minutes late.
I know, and we've been, you know, it's
I have
a
a
little
German
selfish of
president.
ours.
I can't go beyond the diet.
2 minutes?
2.
2 minutes? Everybody okay with that? 2 minutes? Mizora Lee again, please, just for us.
you very much. So, take your microphone. We would like to have you all here, and thank you all of you. Why don't you join us and the people from the first round and join us on stage, please. Oh, and give a big applause to our panelists and all the people who participate to this. Bernd, it's yours.
Move in the center there. In the middle. You could stay here. Voila. Voila. Here. You take hands. Another time.
Have a good one.